this picture here, you know, we have our original reference, the idea of some maybe kind of Christmas tree lights. And in order to do that, where we see the lights, we need a dark dusk day or nighttime. But you know, we're trying to decide whether what we want to make sense, what's more natural looking. I guess it'd be more natural if it was maybe sunset and there's no lights on a bridge like this, because how would there be electricity? But if this is near an inhabited place, there'd be electricity like we have in one of our references up there. So we'll kind of decide. I'm almost going to paint it without that in mind to begin with. And then we can kind of decide if we want to make it with lights on there, or we can make it where it's more just natural light, maybe the sun, and it's not nightfall yet. But you know, we're working with our mother color, just kind of rehash. We use kind of a dull bluish purple. Okay, so we used our ultramarine blue and cobalt blue to start with, and some white, but that looks like a cartoon. And so we put a little red in there, an orange-based red, like cadmium red light, and that will make a duller looking purple. We even threw maybe a little bit of brown in there as we start getting into these hills and the trees. Because that's what you do. You just make our atmosphere color is really the color of the scene, which is this dull purple mix. And then whatever this stuff is out there, pine trees like we have in the foreground, you just start adding that to that color, and that becomes these mountains. And eventually it's all the tree color and almost no atmosphere color or the horizon color. So that's the idea behind this. You can do that for anything. And we can kind of, you know, should we make it all snow and add trees into that, or vice versa? It depends on how much trees are on. I'm just looking at what's easier to paint. But also, as far as this reference pictures that we have, I almost don't even want to look at this thing with the lights anymore. Let's just put that up there. And I almost would just kind of paint from my imagination. I almost prefer to do that with this. That way we're not copying someone's photograph. So that's what we'll do here. And you know, we're painting this as impressionistic, so do what photographers don't, is throw more colors in there. You know, we want this to get darker and a little stronger in colors as things get forward. But like I said, we want to decide. Now, if we do the trees, you know, on top of snow, that's the easiest, because it's easier to make a brush mark like a pine tree instead of trying to paint around all that stuff. It's almost like a watercolor technique, and I'm not going to worry about that. So what I'm going to do is, like always, if you're just patient, you make painting easier. Anyone could do that. Everyone has patience. If you get impatient, then you're only kind of hurting yourself. So what we'll do, we'll just make this snow here in this mountain. So actually, things like snow, it's going to actually get brighter as we come forward, because you get brighter and darker at the same time, more contrast as we come forward. So this particular mountain will do a little differently than the others. And I'm going to paint it lighter. Whoop, not that light. Take it easy there. Rub some of that off. And also we want to make sure we save our lightest lights for the closest parts, closest subjects, like the bridge and right up here. That's the idea of adding more contrast as we come forward. Everything starts, you start mixing this medium blue tone into everything. That's the reason as things get farther away, there's less contrast, because they all eventually become this more medium blue value. So as we come forward, you know, any trees or snow will get brighter and darker accordingly. So this, and we can dab a couple of, you know, trees into these too, and put a little variety. This is just, I mean, doing this in live here, we just have to kind of make this very basic, just to see what the colors and the shapes and the composition looks like. That's all we're really doing here today. And sometimes for some people that's a completed painting. It's almost abstract, which is nice. All right, so that would be kind of that. And I'm also making sure that the slope doesn't match our other one behind there, even though sometimes it might. It just adds to interest. It looks a little more natural. All right. Maybe I'll go a little farther down with this. I don't think there'll be a stream. I don't think there'll be any trees right there. So we'll make that snow too. That's kind of what we're doing. So it's basically our mother color, the atmosphere color, plus a little white. Most of this. And there's a little dirtiness from some green and stuff dabbed in there. All right. So there's that. And now let's, just to help with this composition, and so we don't, aren't a slave to any of these pictures, let's not look at that other thing, and let's make this bridge. And we will go with a red tone. And you see it's very dull, reddish brown, almost like blue in there, because that might be the atmosphere color. Now we'll make it red. It's a red bridge. But for now, since we don't know if we're going to make Christmas tree lights on there or just have it be some kind of natural light, let's make it more of just a neutral tone. We'll use our Kedra light, and I'm just going to throw brown in there, maybe a little blue. I just want to do this just so I could see where the bridge starts and stops almost for the rest of the picture. And then this color will be almost completely covered up maybe if we make it brighter or darker. But it's a good start. A little brown, a little blue. Just seeing how big it is. Something like that. And I'm not going to fill it in too much. Let's leave it kind of messed up looking, where we see some of the undertone through there. Put a little variety in there. That's another one of those things. Patience, and just adding tons of variety in your subjects. Put lots of little different colors that all kind of blend again and average out and make the color that you're wanting. That looks more natural. It makes the painting more interesting. All right. I mean, Norman Rockwell, when he paints a shoe, the leather of the shoe's got 15 different colors and strokes in there. So even the snow, let's go over that a little more. On the roof. This kind of that pinky white that we're using. So it's really kind of our atmosphere color and white. In this case, we're making it more neutral color, so we can kind of go either way with it. So we throw a little red in there to pink it up. So all these things on this coat, I'm going to keep things more kind of neutral, not too bright, not too this, not too that. That way, when we decide how this is going to be with the composition, whether we have Christmas tree lights or natural light, we can kind of go either way. Normally, I would know what to do exactly because we might have that figured out. Might not want to change our reference picture, but in this case, I kind of want to. That's more of a medium value. All right, now we see where water would be. And how do we see water? Originally, we'll say it's a dark day like this. It's going to be very dark. You start out with just the undertone of what the river or lake would be. And it's going to be a dark color, like a dark greenish, muddy brown. That's the bottom of a lake. But then we start with that, and then anything that might reflect into that. This bridge might, a little bit. All right, so let's take some of that. And then you just kind of, whatever is out there in the world, you start with its color, you mix it with the color that you assume this muddy lake would be, and that would be kind of the reflection color. Sometimes the reflection is almost a mere duplicate of what's out there, but usually it's not. It has a little of both. So with this, why don't we start from the back, because the sky is probably going to mix into there. So let's start out with, that's just our sky color. We'll dirty it up a little bit like it's the lake. So it's kind of this stuff that's reflecting in here, and then it will start looking like water. And there could also be snow, you know, on parts of the lake where it's frozen, it's ice, snow. Let's just kind of define our shore. We'll do that with a snow color because that would be kind of on the shore of all this. Trying to make this interesting. You know, where it doesn't match exactly. Let's try that. This could be a big white snow area right here. Boom. I don't even know if that's in the picture or not, but let's try that. We'll medium it up, darken the value a little bit. Now in our picture, the one with all the colors and the lights, that's where we're getting all those colors in the snows from those man-made lights. It could also be, you know, similar warm colors from a sunset. So that's what we're going to do eventually, is decide if this is a natural sunset color or man-made Christmas tree lights. If you want it to be more of a Christmas theme versus just a general winter theme. So we're using kind of just that. This would be more in shadow down here. Now doing ice, you'll notice kind of ice is kind of more of a gray, duller, darker version of snow. So whenever you see snow and there's ice on the edge of a lake, you know, your snow is going to be a little whiter or whatever the color is. And then you just make kind of usually a darker, duller, more of a gray down version, and that looks like ice. And you paint it with very horizontal strokes. So it'll be more of a gray, not so blue. Put a little brown, a little red into our snow color. And you do more horizontal strokes. Maybe make it a little darker too. We'll use this over here. That's where your complements come in handy, knowing those. You'll be able to take any color like this blue here and make a gray out of it. It's kind of more orange, really. Don't rely on just like black paint for everything. Whoop. That's too much. I just want it to look different, at least for now, than our snow color, so we know it's kind of ice. We'll go over that later. If the color's not right, don't worry about it, because when you go back later and adjust your colors a little bit, some of this will show, and it has good variety in your colors then. So this is the edges of the lake, where it's near the ground and doesn't have running water, and it starts forming ice. Let's put some of our bridge color in the water. We'll just use our red and our brown and blue again, but dirty it up with this is kind of our pine tree mixture, which is a beautiful natural color of sap green and alizarin crimson. And if you use more of the green, it looks more greenish. Use more alizarin, it's like a warmer brown, but it makes kind of a nice brown, great for pine trees. Especially pine trees that have, you know, all the needles. You don't just use green for a pine tree. Mixed in all that, those green needles, which are often tan, is lots of twigs, brown stuff. So there's a lot of brown mixed into your pine trees, even if you don't paint the twigs. All right. That looks pretty. Okay, now you kind of decide for whether the snow on the roof would reflect or not. That's kind of a judgment call, unless you're looking at a picture. We'll put a little bit in there. Let's just see what that looks like. But it kind of depends on the angle of the roof. That's one of those things where you may see it directly, but it may not be in a reflection because the angle of the reflection is not right. So that's one of those 3 rules of reflections.
Rule number 1. The object must be lighter in value than the reflected surface. Here, as the smooth surface gets lighter, only values lighter yet will reflect into it. So be aware, this is possible, this is not. And a reflective surface can have multiple values in it, as in the surface of a painting made smooth with varnish. Now this reflective surface is actually what's behind window glass, and it has many different values, darker than the lamp, but not the room itself. While this pooch enjoys a cruise, his boat doesn't show a clear reflection due to the water's rough surface. Here, only portions of a pond are wavy due to wind gusts. Good artists often show this natural and interesting occurrence in their paintings. Water, ice, and snow have varying degrees of smoothness, where the water reflects most and the snow, being white and textured, reflects least. Even something like gravel becomes smooth when water covers it. But be careful, we actually only see a reflection of the sky between trees. Often in shadow and darker in value, these trees are not reflected. Now for your quiz. Would you paint this duck and these dark green trees into this blue pool? Most painters would, but we see you actually don't. The only thing reflecting is the bright sky. Last, to see a reflection, your angle of view must be correct. Here we have 2 pumpkins and 2 reflections. Move our angle of view and only one still shows. Let's not paint this or this. Just remember, what we paint for a reflection is what our view would be viewing from the surface itself at the angle of origin called the vertex. So this view is usually different than our direct view. Here the reflection sees underneath the bridge, where our direct view does not. They are only the same like a mirror image when our direct view is very low, equal to the surface itself. Of course, that surface can be rough, breaking up our reflection image and its edges. Now take what you know on reflections for all kinds of things, like taking photos of things that are shiny or behind glass.
All 3 of those things aren't present, you won't see a reflection. So here our object, which is the snow, is definitely brighter than our lake, which is like almost a black. Surface is smooth, it's water. And then, whether this angle, like right here, you probably wouldn't see it because it would just see the bottom of the roof. So I'm just playing around. And if this is like real turbulent water, it'd be a lot of little broken up stuff. So really turbulent water, you may not see a reflection even though water is smooth, but it's so bumpy, all the little angles of the waves, it ends up being not at the right angle. All right. Let's just add a little more snow here. Some places. Just kind of start creating the form of the landscape a little bit. Try to add a little variety. Some of it's bumpy, some of it's maybe flatter. Let's put this more shadowy. We'll have to decide, if on the next coat, we're going to have to decide Christmas tree lights or sunset or both, and then we know how to paint the snow and all the values of the shapes. We have to determine where the light is coming from, whether it's coming from the lights on a bridge or a low angle of the sun through maybe some trees. This is such a, we imagine it to be kind of a dense forest, so you might just have a few sun spots. Most of it's all dark. That could be interesting. Just a few spots would stand out with this warm sunset color, and the rest of the forest is dark. It could be very dramatic. We just want to at least get something on here. So everything's got some kind of paint of some kind of subject on there, and then we'll let it dry. And I'll finish this back in the studio. But what we're doing is just getting an impression, whether we like this composition or not. So that's what this underpainting kind of is. But, also, you have to decide, maybe from the beginning, is this going to be a realistic type of picture or impressionistic or even farther into abstract? Now, when I'm painting from my imagination, however, I want as many sources as I can come across to help me do the painting a little faster, because we all know time is money.
The more realistic the painting, the more information is required in order to do so. Sizes, values, colors, perspective, reflections, light sources, then getting the subject itself right, everything matters. All this is why painting from imagination and in a realistic way is often considered the most difficult, and why many realistic artists rely on just what they can put together in their studio space or see directly outside and just paint from life. For example, our show painting a girl looking at a castle tower 450 years ago first required a bit of research, then a preliminary sketch, a couple photo shoots, and many other photos to study items that might be around back then and for a background. In this case, we also tried out many ideas in a computer versus actually painting many practice paintings, a big time saver.
Also, since we toned our canvas, again, our tone for this was I really wanted to just get this thing black as quick as possible. So we used Prussian blue and cadmium red light, which has got an orangey tinge to it. So blue and orange are complements, and a little bit of yellow in there as well. You could just use the Prussian blue and cadmium orange. That'll work. By using the red and the orange, or red and the yellow to kind of make an orange, it ends up being a little dirtier yet. And we get a nice black mixing those together. If I just use the cadmium red light in the Prussian blue, it will have a slightly purple tone to them, because neither one of those has much purple in there, but there'll be some, so it'll be kind of a purplish black color. And what gets rid of the purple? The yellow. So see how it always works out with the complements. Whenever there's a color that you're not wanting from a mixture, you put the opposite in there and that gets rid of it. So that's why that's very helpful to know those. Okay. And we'll throw a little brown in some of these snow patches. Like, I don't know. Yeah, mostly, let's just see what the values of the snow look like. We'll have a few places maybe where there's some brush. It's not all this snow. This here is lake, water. We'll keep that dark there. Maybe we'll show more of that. That's what's nice about not having the reference pictures. You just start seeing things by accident and you'll just change it. But yeah, our undertone, we started out with the Prussian blue, orange kind of mixture, and we kind of glazed some of this other black mixture with the sap green and the alizarin crimson. That's really more of our black tone for this particular picture. We're using that for the trees and also for the lake. Yeah, we don't have much more to do, just a little more. And maybe we'll wipe out a couple areas and put a couple little kind of snow bumps in here. And again, we'll just kind of see how this looks to us on another day. And I'm also thinking, I don't know. I'm torn whether to make this a sunset, more natural light. And I think what I'm going to do, in case we go that route, let's paint over this and make this dark. And this could be, we're opening up more space over here for the composition. This is where we want a stiffer brush. This is what I use the bristles for normally, is to wipe out stuff. We'll make the bridge shorter. We'll have space here. And we'll maybe use, for lights, instead of Christmas tree lights that need electric, we'll have a sleigh coming out of here and we'll have some kind of lamp on it. People will be riding on a sleigh, and that will be the light. We'll use that for our light along with sunset. So for now, let's just darken this, get back to our dark valleys. That way we'll see the sleigh. The snow won't be blocking the view. We could, look here. I'm starting, just by accident, I'm starting to see, it's almost like we see the opening of the bridge, like our view is over here. That could be a possibility. Remember, this is an opening. We'll just do that impression. If that's the case, then our snow angle of the roof is definitely in an angle. Not as much as the other side, but just a little bit. And we want some little prickly things just so this dries with some prickly stuff on the tree. So it's not just looks like a banana. And a few little things poking out. I think these trees could go way up. Maybe these are real big ones. Go off the picture, see how that balances the composition, see if that will work, and I think it'll be all right. So we're just throwing green, our black mixture, a little brown in there. And let's make these where they look a little more random. Maybe make this the bigger one, I don't know. That attracts attention, weight to the picture. If something is big, if it's really dark, if it's really bright, whatever gets your attention, that adds weight. So I want to see if having weight here will be okay. Adding a couple more of these little snowballs, these little islands, river, little balls. And it's so easy, again, to be patient, just let something dry. And then you could try things on your actual canvas and wipe it out if you don't like something. So making sure we have any kind of soft haired brush, soft haired flat, to soften all our edges, so none of those are going to show after it's dry, because I'm sure I'll be moving some of these things around. Otherwise, you have that thick edge of paint that you'll always see. Even if you try to scrape it off, it's going to show. So you go around everything and make sure everything is soft for later on. And I think that's good. I think we'll just let this one dry, and we'll continue it in the studio. Well, we're out of time for today, so be sure and join us next time as we finish our special holiday painting heading home.